Alrighty, so what I'm going to do is right now I am drying some rose petals, some roses, and I'm also going to put the petals in here, and I am going to make some rose oil and some rose water. Here we go. There we go. Look at that beautiful little thing right there. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to keep her out and put her in some water. Should just sit right there for now. These stems with the small thorns, I'm going to keep those separate because I'm going to dry those and keep those as well. And here we are. Here's our nice little pile of rose petals. So let's get started, and we're going to make some oil and we're going to make some water, rose water and rose oil. So here's the dehydrator. Alrighty, there's tray one. Oh! Tray 2, and then the top tray. Alrighty, so now all we're going to do is we're going to get that water hot so that it will boil. We'll add a little bit more. Now this water is as pure as you're going to get. This water comes straight from the ground. It comes straight from the ground right up into our house. So I also have rainwater available to me that I use, but we're going to use this water here. Not that it's going to do anything, it's just to heat up the jar, but I still, when I get a chance to use natural water that's not been contaminated with chemicals, I always try to do that. So we're going to let that boil until it gets really hot, and then I will get right back to you. And so while that starts to boil, let's get started on working on these rose petals and the oil. So the oil that I am going to use is light olive oil. I'll be using this. And what I will do is I will begin placing the rose petals. Alrighty, so we're going to begin here by taking these rose petals, this jar, which has, there we go, and this olive oil. Alrighty, so I'm going to begin by placing a bunch of the rose petals into here. And we're going to use as many of these as we possibly can because I want to make sure this is very, very rosy. So we'll do from here. Let's add some oil. There we go. Let's get this nice. There we go. Oh yes. Let's get this nice and add a few more in here. Push this down. And while I'm doing this, I've got my water on to boil. There we go. Push that down. Let's add a little bit more oil here. There we go. See what we got. Oh yes. And let's top it all off with a little bit more. Let's see here. As a matter of fact, this is all we've got left. Let's see if I can get, let's just force those in there. There we go. We'll get those in there. There we go. Awesome. Alright. Make sure it's all covered by the oil. Alright. Just for GP, a little bit more oil. There we go. Put that lid on it. And we're going to tighten that down. And then we're going to head back into the kitchen. Alrighty, so I've got the water at a good boil. And I got it turned down to the lowest setting possible. So I'm just going to let that set for a few minutes. Alrighty, so once this gets, there we go. Matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it completely off. I'm going to set my rose oil in there. Put the lid on it. And I'm just going to let it sit for a couple hours. So we'll come back in about 2 hours and we'll see what we got. Alrighty, so here are the roses from my dehydrator. And these are looking really nice. And I had to resupply my small jar of roses because last night I decided I was going to make some rose tea. So I used all of my dried roses that I had for my tea. So I resupplied that, and I figured if I was going to resupply my roses for the tea, I might as well go ahead and collect enough to make my rose oil. So I'm going to go ahead and label. So I already have here's my dried roses that I just pulled out of the dehydrator. And as I said, I made myself some rose tea last night, so I had to replenish my dried roses. So we'll put that back on my shelf. Pretty close to where it belongs. Now, here, this is for much different magic. This is rose stems and thorns. So, we'll go ahead and label that. And all I do is I just write it down on a piece of paper. And then I use this clear contact paper, and it acts like a lamination, and you can get it at the Dollar Tree. It's pretty inexpensive. Just take a hole punch, put a little hole in it, then I take a piece of string, run it through, and then I just tie it onto the jar. 1, 2, tight. Knot. And there we go. Straighten this up a tad bit here, and then there's our label, rose stem and thorns. And then I will place this on my shelf as well. Alright, so it's been 2 hours. It's been a little longer than 2 hours, but pretty close. There we go. So I'm going to set that back in the water. So I will place this back on, and I'm just going to let it sit overnight and let it steep. And tomorrow we'll continue working on it. We'll strain the rose petals out of it, and we will bottle it up. And I may grab another rose or two and maybe put a couple rose petals in each of the jars that I use to keep it in. Alrighty, so I went through that process 3 times. I put it on low and let it simmer for about 2 hours. Then I turned it off, and then what I did was I got it out. And most of the oil had settled on the bottom, so I gave it a little shake. And then what I did was I let it sit for about an hour, and then I turned it back on and let it heat up again for another couple hours. And I did that 3 times. This is the final time. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the stove off, and this time it'll steep until, well, I can't say until morning, because it is now 5:30 in the morning, and I've been working on this since around 11 o'clock last night. So it's a process. So it's going to sit here, and later when I get a chance, I'll take it out, and then we'll strain it and we'll bottle it up. So it has been sitting overnight and most of the day. So I'm going to take it out. We'll take it out of here. I'll strain it with this mesh strainer into this glass container. Oh, it's really sealed. There we go. There we go. So we got a half cup, which is plenty. There we are. So I'm going to stick this into the individual jars that I'm making for a couple people, and I'll get right back with you. Alrighty, so we're going to finish this project up. I'm going to take the bottle and I'm going to add 3 rose petals. To each bottle. Add to this one. Add that one. There we go. Just enough for both of these bottles. Go ahead and close this bottle up nice and tight. There we go. Rose oil. Close this one up nice and tight. Rose oil. So there we are. Made rose oil. Thank you for watching Bentley's Outdoor Adventures, and enjoy the outdoors, even if it's just your own backyard.